November 20, 1917. Through Cambrai, France, hundreds of British tanks roll. Machine guns tear through the advancing infantry. German artillery shells flip the tanks and bury the men beneath them, alive. By the close of the day, tens of thousands of troops will have perished. But let's alter a single detail. Instead of the cumbersome Mark V tanks traversing the war-ravaged terrain, an object no one could comprehend appears. An M1A2 Abrams main battle tank. A 70-ton behemoth dropped onto the battlefield almost 75 years too soon. Its gas turbine engines scream like a fighter jet. Its armor forged from composites and depleted uranium, and its 120mm smoothbore gun capable of obliterating anything in its path. So what unfolds when one modern tank, backed by nearly a century of military advancements, confronts World War I-era Germany? Is it capable of altering history? Will it even have a meaningful impact? Or is it simply one tank against an entire country's military might? First, let's examine the machine we just sent over a century into the past to, effectively, kill the parents of Nazis. The M1A2 Abrams is driven by a 1,500 horsepower gas turbine engine, the same type you'd typically find in a jet aircraft. This monstrosity can consume jet fuel, diesel, or even regular gasoline, if necessary. It can reach speeds exceeding 40 miles per hour, a ridiculous pace when compared to the Mark V tanks of World War I, which struggled to crawl faster than a jogging man. Its armor is a classified mixture of composites and depleted uranium, capable of shrugging off most modern anti-tank weapons, let alone the pathetic shells of 1917. Then there's the firepower. Its main weapon, the M256 120mm smoothbore cannon, fires depleted uranium or tungsten sabot rounds at hypersonic velocities. These shells would slice through the armor of a Mark V tank as easily as a hot knife through butter. Add a coaxial 7.62mm machine gun and a roof-mounted 50 caliber M2 Browning, and the Abrams essentially becomes a mobile apocalypse. However, Germany won't yield easily. At Cambrai, the Germans established deep defensive lines, trenches reinforced with concrete bunkers, miles of barbed wire, and heavy machine guns positioned to mow down any advancing infantry. Artillery batteries sat behind the front lines, prepared to rain hell on any target. Their infantry carried Mauser rifles and potato masher grenades, while field guns and howitzers offered devastating firepower. Against the British Mark V, these defenses proved brutal. But against the Abrams, the situation becomes decidedly more interesting. 6:20 a.m., the first German machine gunners opened fire, stitching lines of bullets across the advancing British infantry. In the historical engagement, entire platoons were wiped out instantly. But today, a thunderous crack rips through the air. The Abrams unleashes its first high-explosive shell. A concrete bunker disintegrates instantly. Wooden beams and stone blocks erupt into the sky. The machine gunners who once commanded no man's land are vaporized in a single strike. The tank pivots its target. A German strongpoint, concealed behind sandbags and barbed wire, vanishes in a second detonation. Troops nearby are violently thrown into the air by the shockwave. The earth trembles like an earthquake. Soldiers, accustomed to the slow, clumsy bark of 6-pounder guns, possess no frame of reference for the raw violence of a 120mm shell. 6:45 a.m., German officers frantically attempt to deploy field artillery. The 77mm FK-96NA gun had been the backbone of the German defenses, lethal against British tanks. Crews swing their cannons toward the Abrams and unleash fire. Shells scream across the field and impact its armor, but the effect is negligible. Designed to endure modern sabot rounds, which travel at twice the speed, the Abrams composite armor shrugs off World War I steel like pebbles striking a battleship. The tank doesn't even slow its pace. The Abrams answers. A single round of armor-piercing ammunition smashes into the German gun position, transforming the cannon and its crew into a fireball. Where British tanks might require hours to breach artillery defenses, the Abrams can eliminate them in seconds. Infantry surge forward in the wake of the Abrams. In the actual battle, British troops frequently had to clear trenches by hand, fighting room by room with grenades and bayonets. Now, the Abrams coaxial machine gun breaks the line, spraying thousands of rounds per minute. Trenches collapse under the continuous onslaught. German troops, who had previously held their ground even against tanks, break and scatter in panic. Horses bolt from the deafening noise, carts overturn, and officers scream for order that will never come. 7:30 a.m. The Abrams rolls into the heart of the German defensive line. Normally, this would consume most of the day for British forces. Now, the ground shakes as its treads grind through barbed wire, crush trench walls, and roll straight over machine gun nests. Soldiers trapped in dugouts find themselves buried alive as the tank passes overhead. 8 German reinforcements appear. Squadrons of stormtroopers, the Kaiser's army's elite assault troops, charge forward to plug the breach. These men were feared across Europe, trained in infiltration, and equipped with flamethrowers and grenades. They were often decisive against British tanks, but against the Abrams, the story is very different. Grenade shrapnel merely bounces off the armor, as flamethrowers splash harmless fire across steel plating that won't yield to anything less than 1500 C, and with every rotation of the turret, another stormtrooper squad vanishes in a burst of machine gun fire. German commanders attempt their last resort: heavy artillery. Massive howitzers fire from miles behind the lines. Shells the size of bathtubs arc through the sky and explode on the ground around the Abrams. One detonates mere feet away, tossing mud and metal high into the air. But the Abrams grinds forward through the smoke. Its suspension absorbs the impact, and its armor holds firm. Where a Mark V would have been ripped apart, the Abrams maintains its advance. 9 a.m. The British breakthrough at Cambrai has already surpassed anything achieved historically. Trenches that once cost thousands of lives to capture are gone in under 3 hours. German positions crumble under relentless shell fire. The Abrams utilizes its 50 caliber roof-mounted machine gun to mow down fleeing troops, scattering entire companies. But we now face a problem. The Abrams, while an apex predator, is also a hungry one. Its gas turbine engine burns fuel at a rate unimaginable in 1917, 60 gallons per hour, and it only carries enough for roughly 250 miles under modern logistics. Here, there are no supply trucks, no JP-8 fuel, and no mechanics trained to maintain its engine. The British refuel their Mark versus with gasoline refined from coal. That fuel, full of impurities, would destroy the Abrams turbines in literal minutes. The tank continues the fight, but the fuel gauge is dropping. Every shell fired, every yard crossed, every roar of the engine drains its reserves. Officers can already see the smoke thinning. The engine's scream is softening. The Abrams clears another bunker line, but the end is imminent. Fuel is nearly exhausted, and ammunition is running low. The battlefield is littered with burning strong points and shattered artillery, and the German defense is collapsing. 11:30 a.m. The engine sputters, the treads slow, and the Abrams finally sits still. An immovable steel fortress in the mud of France. British troops swarm around it, awestruck. Mechanics attempt to pry at its armor, discovering materials decades ahead of their time. They could refuel it, but not with jet fuel. They cannot repair it. And most significantly, they cannot reproduce the shells that just fundamentally changed the face of battle. It might run again, but without ammunition, it would be reduced to nothing more than armored ground transport. For a few hours at Cambrai, the Abrams was unstoppable. While on the battlefield, it utterly dominated, saved thousands of British lives, and terrorized the remaining German troops into retreat. It was a success, but it could not endure. It won a battle, not a war. And while it tormented the Germans for one morning, its impact ended the instant its engine died. Ultimately, World War I would rage on at a scale where the Abrams couldn't truly make much of a difference. Or what do you think would happen? And if you're curious about what would happen if an F-22 Raptor fought in World War I, check out the video on the screen now. Thanks for watching.